attended the Resource Conservation Workshop in on NC State campus, and our organization paid for this 2 scholarships for both of those students to attend. I've also done numerous programs throughout the school system with in the school day and then also after school and summer programs. And we wanted to stress the importance of the contest that we have, and one of the reasons why I'm here tonight. We have a poster contest that we have that is for themed conservation topics each year, and the poster contest is for grades 3 through 6. We also have an essay contest for students in the 6th grade, computer design slideshow contest for 6th graders, and a public speaking contest for 7th and 8th graders, and a computer design poster contest for 9th grade. And tonight I'm here because I wanted to recognize a 3rd grader who attends Central Elementary School, and her name is Catherine Wilson. So if she can come up front with her family, I'd appreciate that, please. I just want to tell you a little bit what Katie had done today, for this. The theme this year for our contest was the living soil. And Katie entered the poster contest, and the poster that she created was bright green. It had butterflies on it, and she had lots of different messages on there, but the main content was save our soil. And so Katie won, out of all the 3rd grade students in Iredell County, she won 1st place in that competition. And because of that, she won a prize was $25, which isn't too bad. And then by winning 1st place, her poster moved on to the area competition, where she competed against 12 counties. And so those are all 3rd graders in 12 counties. She won 1st in that competition as well. And she won an additional $30. So how much is that so far, Katie? $55? Pretty good. Well, then, because she won the area competition, she then went on to the state. And in the state competition, she won 2nd place, which was $100. And so we are just very, very pleased with Katie and how, at such a young age, she sees the importance of soil and water conservation. I wanted to present a plaque to her. This plaque came from the North Carolina Soil and Water Conservation District, and we put it in this frame for you. And we just want to tell you congratulations, that we're very proud of you.
Central.
Yes,
Next, we have, let's see, Ms. Terry Stevens here to do the Science Fair recognitions.
Mr. Brader, may I ask you to present the first awards? I'm always so excited to present these awards. Every year, our number of students who are interested in the science fair competitions grows. And last year, we recognized all of our district winners and then our regional winners. Well, this year, we had so many district winners who went on to regional competition and then to state competition that tonight we're just going to recognize those who went to regionals and state competitions. And we're changing the schedule just a little bit because we have some students who, our middle school students who have to get back to Mount Morin tonight. They're having their Night of the Arts. So unfortunately, many of our winners will not be present tonight because of Night of the Arts at Mount Morin, and VPAC has recognition ceremony tonight, and we have some play practice within the district too. So starting with our middle school competition, Students, if you would come forward and please get your certificate and remain here for a photograph. Brianna Volsky from Troutman Middle School, honorable mention in Biological Science A. As Brianna comes forward, I'll say that you probably recognize her. Brianna is an 8th grader at Troutman Middle School, and this is the 3rd year in a row that she has gone to regional competitions. So congratulations, Brianna. Annika Rowett from Mount Morn School. She took 2nd place at the Northwest Regional in Biological A. And Cassidy Brandt from Northview School took 1st place in Earth Environmental at Northwest Regional. As those students are getting their photograph made, I'd like to mention that Piper Lobach, Shrikar Mumadava Rapu, and Nathan Ostrowski, Kimber Miller and Olivia Garland, and Shruti Manapali, and Samantha Boone, all also from Mount Morn took prizes at the Northwest Regional Science Fair, but they could not be here tonight.
Ms. Stevens?
Yes.
Can I stop you just a second before we go further? I'd like to remind the audience tonight, I know we're all excited, but remind you that this is being taped and possibly televised live. If not televised live, it'll be televised several times over. So out of respect for all the students, I would ask maybe that we hold our applause until Ms. Stevens finishes her comments, because sometimes I've noticed that the clapping starts before she trails off, and that will not be caught on the television. So I know we want to give these students as much recognition as we can on the television as well. So let's hold our applause till she finishes her comments, and then after she pauses, we can clap.
Thank you, Dr. Cash. That's a great idea. I'd like to say, too, that the Northwest Regional Fair has been held in North Wilkesboro for the past 2 years, but this year it was held in December at Appalachian State University, and it was a great experience for all of our students that went. And the Northwest Regional Fair is all of Region 7. So that's from Avery County to Davie County, Mount Morn graded, Allegheny. It's quite a large span. So this is a very intense competition, and I'm very proud of our students who go and perform so well. You'll be hearing some names called again, because from the regional competition, our students went forward, and this year, for the first time, Iredell-Statesville schools had students that competed at both the science fairs and the North Carolina Student Academy of Science competition. So that was a first for us, and I really appreciate those students that stepped forward and did both. The science fair has the project boards that you're used to, but the North Carolina Student Academy of Science presentation involves a PowerPoint and a paper, and the judges are people with science backgrounds. So I'd like to recognize Annika Rawat again and Cassidy Brandt, who not only received recognition for the North Carolina for the Regional Science Fair, but also the North Carolina Student Academy of Science. And then they went to the state competition and were recognized there. So both of these students placed at state competition, and they are also going forward to another competition, because at the state competition, they were given the Broadcast Masters Award. And Broadcast Masters, the Masters part stands for Math, Applied Science, Technology, and Engineering for Rising Stars. And I think these students are rising stars. So Annika and Cassidy, would you please come back up front? Ms. Bonham, would you present these, please, and stand for a picture? So ladies, hold up your both certificates, your broadcast masters and your state science fair. Mr. Shoemaker, will you do the next awards? We're going back now on the agenda to the elementary recognitions. Again, this year at the Northwest Regional Science Fair, 8 elementary projects went forward to the state. I'm sorry, 8 elementary projects were recognized as honorable mentions. 4 of those were Iredell-Statesville Schools projects. So 50% from Region 7 that received honorable mention were our students. Tonight, we'd like to recognize Nayati Kandakar and Julia Konomu from Lake Norman Elementary School. And Austin Volsky from Troutman Elementary School. And yes, Austin is Brianna's brother. These students could not be here tonight, but they also received honorable mention. Anson Strange and Connor Davis from Scotts Elementary School, and Cole Castillo from Lake Shore Elementary School. Mr. Gallion, would you present the next awards? Again, at the Northwest Regional Science Fair, 2 of our students went on to the State Science Fair. 8 elementary projects went forward, and 2 of those belong to our students. Tonight, we'll recognize Jeff Austin from Lakeshore Elementary School and Varsha Sudarsan from Lake Norman Elementary School. And Jeff also went to state where he received an exemplary award in the elementary division. You may have seen Jeff on our ISS webpage because he's been featured there, a photograph with Science Buddies. When he did an experiment he found on the Science Buddies website, he found an error in their information that they had published. And he took them to task on that, and they have recognized and rewarded him for that. Is there any student here that I did not recognize for a science award? I would like to recognize those students that emailed me that they could not be here, and that would be Stephanie Powell from VPAC. Every year we have the opportunity to send elementary, middle, and high school students to our regional fair, and we have not had any takers on high school in several years. So this year, Stephanie Powell from VPAC presented in the North Carolina Academy of Science competition and the Science Fair, Regional Science Fair, and she placed at the regional fair and then went forward to the state level and placed there too. So round of applause for Stephanie and all of our award winners.
Next, we'll move on to the North Carolina Governor School recognitions. Again, Ms. Stevens.
Mr. Johnson, will you present these, please? As most of you know, North Carolina Governor's School is the oldest residential program of its kind in the nation, and it's very prestigious. A couple of years ago, because of budget, the state decided not to fund the school, and the alumni raised the money to keep the program going. And that just shows the impact that this opportunity has on students' lives for the rest of their lives. Tonight, we'd like to recognize our ISS students who will be attending the 2014 session of North Carolina Governor's School. All but one of these students, I believe, is here tonight. Allison Chenard is going from Lake Norman High School in instrumental music. Ashton Eliezer from Lake Norman High School is going in theater. Callie Olish from South Iredell High School in dance. Maggie Golden in choral music from Lake Norman High School. Chandler Terry in instrumental music from Statesville High School. And I happen to know it's Chandler's 16th birthday today. Maggie Emery in math from South Iredell High School. I don't believe Maggie's with us tonight. Elizabeth Farley in social science from Lake Norman High School. Madison Mersk in social science from South Iredell High School. And Patrick O. McClanahan in social science from Lake Norman High School. Before we applaud these students, I'd like to say that there were 1,700 applications to North Carolina Governor's School for 2014. 660 students from across the state were invited to attend. 10 of the 32 students from Iredell-Statesville schools who went forward to the state level were invited to attend, and 9 of those accepted the invitation. So it's quite competitive. Congratulations to all of you.
Okay, next, let's go back up to item A and do our teacher feature. Susie?
Thank you, Dr. Cash. We are going to do this just a little bit differently tonight. We're going to acknowledge Teacher Appreciation Week. So this month, our teacher feature will be recognizing all teachers. National Teacher Appreciation Week was last week, May 3rd through 7th, and Iredell-Statesville Schools decided to give our students an opportunity to recognize a teacher that the student would like to thank. Here's the initial tweet. Over 55 different teachers were mentioned, about over 100 likes and retweets by students, staff, and the community. Students were able to truly voice their appreciation for the teacher that had made a difference in their lives. Some students acknowledged without the help of their teacher, they would most likely not succeed. It was amazing to see the response and excitement by not only students, but by parents too. Our teachers really are making a difference. School administration also shared their appreciation with their staff through Facebook and acknowledged their thankfulness to their parent organizations. Teachers from around the county were thanked by parents. That looks awfully nice. Students. And administration, as everyone celebrated the work of our teachers. Thank you to each and every one of our teachers here at Iredell-Statesville Schools. You are making a difference in the lives of our students. Thank you.
Okay, if we move on to item G now, the VIF Global Team Award winners. Johnson, are you doing those?
Yes, sir. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Cash. I see Ms. Ryan here, so Ms. Ryan, would you come up and help with these recognitions? These are your teachers. And Dr. Cash, would you like to give out the certificates? VIF stands for the Visiting International Faculty, and for the second year in a row now, East Iredell Elementary School is being recognized for having 4 teachers that were chosen to be part of the Global Team Award representing East Iredell Elementary School. It's no surprise in our community that the dual immersion program at East has been an overwhelming success, and so tonight we honor 4 members of the faculty there that have been chosen for this award. And Ms. Ryan, I'm gonna butcher these names, so I'm gonna let you call these folks out as you present these certificates to them.
Next, we have the teacher recognition of the 2014 Outstanding Secondary Mathematics Teacher Awards. Ms. Kelly Cooper.
In today's global economy, 90% of the jobs created require more than a high school level of mathematics proficiency. The importance of mathematics instruction in our schools is critical to our students' future success. The North Carolina Council of Teachers of Mathematics and the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction strive to recognize and reward secondary school teachers who exemplify mathematics teaching excellence by nurturing our students' enthusiasm through the involvement of mathematics fairs, projects, and competitions to supplement and enhance everyday education opportunities. The following teachers were nominated by their school leadership teams for their outstanding contribution toward helping students succeed and by motivating students to excel in mathematics. Dr. Kelly, I'm going to ask you if you will help us with the first recognitions. We have Joanna Jester from East Iredell Middle School. Missy Bristol from Northview IB. We have Sarah Sharp from North Iredell Middle School. Allison Royster from Mount Morin IB, and I'm not sure she was able to meet with us because of an event at the school. And Howard Joyner from West Iredell Middle School. Thank you. And I'm going to ask Ms. Bonham if she will come and help us as well with this next presentation. I would also like to introduce you to the Iredell-Statesville Schools nominee for the North Carolina Council of Teachers of Mathematics Outstanding Secondary Mathematics Teacher of the Year, Melissa Calloway from Brawley Middle School. Melissa will be recognized at the NCCTM conference in Greensboro this fall. We appreciate the positive impact these teachers have made on our students.
Your next item on the agenda is the Keenan Fellows Recognition. Mr. Johnson.
Thanks, Dr. Cash. I think I saw Mr. Bula. Yeah, you want to come up and help with this, Mr. Bula? Principal there at Northview IB. For the second year in a row, Iredell-Statesville Schools has teachers that have been selected to participate in the Keenan Fellows Program. The Keenan Fellows Program is based at NC State University and is in its 14th year of existence. Each year, all across the state, teachers compete to have projects accepted into a summer institute. And this year, we have two teachers, both based at Northview IB, that have been accepted in participation. Tasha Brinkley, and is Ms. Brinkley here? Yep. Ms. Brinkley will be working on a project in the community with the Iredell County Farm Bureau entitled A Growing Field. She'll be studying the agribusiness and looking at career opportunities for students in the future in agriculture. We also have a teacher from Northview, Brittany Head. Ms. Head? Yep. Ms. Head is going to be working with a telecommunications company, CommScope, over in Catawba County. Her research is entitled Making Connections with STEM. She'll be working with students to identify careers in science, technology, engineering, and math. And so congratulations to both these ladies. And Mr. Shoemaker, would you like to join them for the presentation and the photographs? Congratulations, ladies.
Dr. Cash, I realized I omitted a student, and I feel like I must rectify that. Samantha Boone, a student at Mount Morris School, she could not be here tonight because of Night of the Arts, but she also was a district science fair winner, a regional science fair winner, a winner at the North Carolina Student Academy of Science presentation in Region 7, and went forward to win an award at the state level for the North Carolina Student Academy of Science. So she's another one of our ISS students who won multiple awards.
Thank you, Ms. Stevens. Let's give her a hand, too, even though she's not here. And I would like for us also to recognize the leadership that made the presentations and discussed these winners, because I know that it takes the teacher and administrative support behind these students to help them organize whatever it is that the project they're working on, and helps you carry that through and make sure they have the connections to get to these regional and state events. So I think it deserves a hand for all our teachers to help students achieve not only local school and local district, but these regional, state, and then even national recognitions that we see multiple times over by these students who represent us well out in the all the way across the nation. So let's give a hand just in recognition of those. Right. That concludes our recognition portion of the meeting, so we'll move on into the non-consent agenda. Item A has been postponed. We'll move on to items B through K, are items that will require a board vote. So I'll ask that we begin with item B, the child nutrition fees. Ms. Tina Wilson. Yes, these we will.
Good evening, Dr. Cash, Mr. Johnson, members of the board. You have the memo that was sent to you, and as already discussed, due to the Healthy Hunger Kids Free Act of 2010, regulations require that we increase meal prices to get us in, to meet the difference that the government reimburses us for free and reduced meals. And right now, the difference is $2.65, which our meals are 30 cents under that. So we had to do a calculator which recommends that we increase lunch prices 10 cents. And I also have recommended that we increase breakfast price 10 cents due to the new guidelines that they're enforcing on us next school year, enforcing us to offer fruits and vegetables at breakfast also, which is also going to increase our meal cost. Are there any questions?
I just want to make sure that everyone knows that you said last week that the waste rate is about 50% on these lunches,
That is correct.
and participation rate has gone down 30%.
That is correct.
We also talked about the difference. The difference is not 265.
No,
That's
that-
that's the goal we're trying to reach is 265, right?
That is correct. That is currently what the state is reimbursing us for a meal on the free and reduced, and they are asking that we get the full paid students up to that price.
Okay. So the option is you can go at one time and go to 265, or go in increments and get there right before they change the 265. Is that right?
That is correct.
I had a feeling. Thank you.
Welcome.
Let's go ahead and consider this for a vote. We've got the recommendation on the back page at the last statement, increase breakfast and lunch by 10 cents across the board. Breakfast would be $1.35. Lunch for K-5 would be $2.30. Lunch for grades 6 through 12 would be $2.45. May I have a motion to either accept or reject that proposal?
I make the motion that we accept that proposal.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Not all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next we have the middle school band fees. Ms. Susan Weiberg.
Thank you, Dr. Cash. At the Committee of the Whole meeting, we discussed standardizing the wording and possibly implementing a not-to-exceed fee for middle school band. These fees may be needed to cover cleaning and maintenance for school-owned instruments, and financial assistance where needed would still be covered by school-initiated fundraisers. This is being brought to you to standardize the wording and comply with board policy.
We had a discussion about this, as Ms. Weiberg says, last Monday. It really does not include any suggested changes in fees right now. It just gives the option to be there at the school level, that the fee may be charged is a key word. And I think the other key part here that we discussed is that for those students not able to pay those fees, assistance is still available at the local school level. So are there any questions from Ms. Weiberg?
Ms. Weiberg, what's the most that any middle school charges now? Do you know right offhand?
The most that any middle school charges or has charged was $50, and that was last year.
So that's why.
At the current moment, $40, and that's at Northview.
Any other questions, comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion that we accept this proposed change to the middle school band fee. So moved. Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Good. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we will go to the high school parking fees. Mr. Armstrong.
Good evening, Dr. Cash, Mr. Johnson, board members. I'm here to make a request that we raise our parking fees for our high school students from $40 to $50. The main reason is the increasing the parking fee was to set off the increase in activity mileage rate that is going to be passed on to the schools next school year. And this is also this money that we've had in place right now, the $40, for about the last 7 years. Most of our schools use these for capital projects. It's also the only source of money to supplement their school budgets. And a lot of times they use these also for student agendas, for substitute teachers, field trips, and just general expenses throughout the school year. So our 5 traditional high schools are requesting a $10 fee hike in the parking lot fee.
Are there waivers that are made available for some students if needed for parking? I mean, do they make exceptions for that?
In all cases, they do. When someone can't meet that, the principals on a case-by-case basis will work with them. And a lot of times you can work out like a payment plan with the parent or with the student and parent.
But to clarify, Mr. Armstrong, correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay.
Driving to school is a privilege.
That's correct. But sometimes, there are hardships sometimes
Right.
also about jobs and those type things.
And as I make this motion to reluctantly to accept this, I said this at the Committee of the Whole meeting. The North Carolina Constitution calls for a free education for every child.
Yes.
And the fact of the matter is the General Assembly and local funding doesn't allow that to happen anymore. So that's why, ladies and gentlemen of the public, we're having to find opportunities to charge fees because we're holding the district together with rubber bands.
That's true.
So making that little soapbox speech, I'll make a motion that we accept the recommendation.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Mr. Brader, would you accept an amendment, friendly amendment to amend that to be a $5 increase this year? I know some of the principals that, when they were surveyed, said that a $5 increase would be acceptable. One of the principals said that we could stay at 40. So in order to minimize the impact for one more year, I would move that we amend the motion and change it to a $5 increase to 45.
I accept that.
I think just as a matter of procedure, you know, we've got the privilege to do that as a board, but I think out of respect for the discussion and our reluctance to accept surprises, I don't know, this has not been discussed with me. I don't know if any of this proposed change was discussed since we had our discussion at the Committee of the Whole last week, where that option had been discussed with the administration or not. And I think out of respect for them, if this is the feeling of the board, before we vote on that, maybe it would be better judgment and not to set a precedent for surprises on either side, to table it and go back to the administration to see if they can meet the expenses required, you know, with a $45 fee as opposed to I mean, I guess what I'm saying simply is if we're not going to vote on the proposal that has been before us and we want to change that, it warrants both sides having an opportunity for discussion and presentation of more material. I mean, that's just a suggestion on my part. I mean, I hate to see us create new precedents for how we've done business. I don't know how the rest of the board feels. I mean, we've got a motion and a second on the floor and a proposed amendment to the motion. So if we follow order, you know, we need to either rescind the motion or vote it down, but, or vote it in agreement. But I just think if we vote for the motion with that amendment, we are creating a different behavior than what we've traditionally done. And I just want us to realize that we're doing that in the process.
If we remove the motion at this time and the amendment, then we can go back and decide to table it and look at it if there's a strong move to go to 45 instead of 50. I might mention at this time too, when we look at this and somebody looks at a parking fee, the idea is that we need a parking fee to sustain something that has to do with parking. And we're going to paint the lines, we're going to pave the parking lot, or we're going to put a ditch here or there or a drain pipe. And from what I'm hearing, we're using these fees for a lot of other things besides parking. And we're being requested to raise it to cover some of these other things. Our memory won't be 5 years from now when this comes up again, and we won't remember the idea that it went for other things. So I'd mention at this point it might be a good idea to ask at this point to go back and say, let's table it and look at it again, if you would do that.
I think I understand that point, Mr. Kelly, and I think this is an area for us to have discussion. We are certainly free to have discussion. I don't want to be labeled with my comments as saying I'm trying to protect the administration with this. I'm just trying to protect personal integrity for both sides of the issue when presentations are made. I know you represented the principals of these high schools last week.
Yes.
And if you feel that you've got the knowledge and to kind of debate this on their behalf, we can go ahead and have a discussion.
Right. I know that.
Protect, yeah, their right to have more input if we're going to change, you know, what has been presented to us and what we previously discussed.
Well, I haven't heard, they said any type of subtle, and one principal mentioned that and one mentioned. But I know the activity bus, when that hike, if that hike occurs, the high schools right now are struggling, middle schools also, to meet those needs. And a lot of those programs, without some type of way to subsidize those needs, will go into the red, because those costs are in the thousands per year, especially with all the athletic teams that we have in transport. And they do use them also with the upkeep of the parking lots, with the hanging tags, repainting lines. I didn't mention those, but that was in some of the comments from one of the teachers, of one of the principals. And the principal that proposed this spoke with other principals also. And this principal also was on the budget committee and could just foresee the impact of the activity bus fee, how it will impact our high schools. And it will also benefit the CATS. Right now, we send $10 per semester down to cats, and we're going to raise that to 15 per semester to also help cats also.
I know historically, over the years, there's a lot of heartache and indigestion from the principal's parts on suggesting any increase in fees.
Correct,
And
yes.
they've tended in the past to be very conservative with their request. And that's why I felt like if we're going to veer from that after discussion last week, I just felt in fairness that maybe we as a board ought to give them opportunity to reconsider their request. And
Okay.
Not to hold up the process, why don't we just do this? I'll just suggest that we vote on the original motion up or down. I'll rescind my friendly amendment, and we can proceed, because I'm sure they want to know, to be able to get that set up. If that's okay with the board. I didn't mean to hold up progress by any means. I just thought it would.
well, I'm just trying to watch, out of all respect for what you just said, I try to make sure as much as we can that we don't set new precedents in how we do business,
Understood.
and try to remain fair to both, anytime there are two parties represented, to make sure that we give each group an opportunity to present their information. And so with that being said, Mr. Brady, if you're willing to undo the amendment and go back to the original motion to accept the increase recommendation from $40 to $50 for parking fee.
Okay.
You're willing to do that in that second motion? All right, any further discussion?
You did tell us at our last meeting that if a student does move, they don't have to pay double fees. They can transfer
That's
their
correct.
fee from the
The
school.
fee,
to the-
yes, Mr.
Right.
Gallion, the
Wanna
fee
make
goes
sure.
with that student.
Didn't want a student to think they had to pay double fees if they moved or somewhere else, so.
They will
one
not
fee.
pay double.
Correct. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments or questions? If not, then all of those in favor of the motion, which authorizes the principals to increase the parking fee from $40 to $50, starting with the 2014-15 school year, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay. Mr. Gallion, how's that
No,
vote?
I said no.
Okay, so 4-2? Okay, 4-2, the motion carries.
Thank you.
Let me mention one other thing. As everybody knows, I'm not in favor of killing trees and producing paperwork. But just like as we have just seen here on this particular item, what I have in front of me is about 3 lines of a request. All the other information about how the money is going to be used, who's going to use it, who's going to decide, is not here. I would like to see all that information on something like this, much more than this. That's just a request. If it can be done, fine. If it can't, whatever. But when you were doing something like this, I mean, a lot of people would look at this and say, $10, that's nothing. I'll pay $10 more and go on down the road. But to a lot of people, this is a major item. So to go to a major item, I'd like more than 3 lines. That's a request. Thank you.
The next items where we see Dr. Hargrave will be Dr. Taylor, filling in for him in his absence tonight. So next, we'll go to the activity bus fees. Dr. Taylor.
And Mr. Kelly, I did not prepare this memo. We'll work on the length of that. Last Monday night at the Committee of the Whole meeting, Dr. Hargrave brought forth a request for an increase in mileage for activity bus use due to delayed due to some delayed purchases for activity buses and increase in maintenance costs and increase in fuel cost. They are requesting an increase in the activity bus usage from $1.65 per mile to $2 per mile, and a request for an increase in the use for the yellow buses when they're used for in-county travel from $3.07 per mile to $3.50 per mile. I know there was extensive discussion on that last week, but I'll be glad to try to answer any questions you may have.
Any
Just
questions?
use the yellow buses in town.
Yellow buses can be used in county only.
And one more time, we're talking about an increase in fees, and I'm looking at the sheet of paper that I have in front of me to explain this, and everything that you just said is not here. I mean, I understand it's correct. with no problem, but I can't look at it and tell whether or not that's a good idea or not, because the numbers aren't here.
I
I
understand.
mean, all this says is an increase in fees, so we vote the fee and find out, oh, it went crazy. So that's the next
I
item.
think you had some information that had been shared previously with you from Dr. Hargrave. I don't think it was included in this packet.
The next thing.
I agree. I think we had information on the information that was in our committee of the whole packet. And a lot of times when they have brought that forward, they kind of assume that we have that information with us that carries over to the regular board meeting. Maybe we need to, if that's the request of the board members, to have that repeated.
We can certainly do
You
that
had
moving
the other
forward.
part? You had that? This is all we had. A question, that's all.
If it has to do with fee schedule, you could just put them all three, different item, but this maybe is placement of these front and back.
Absolutely.
This was the parking fee stuff. They did a comparison.
Right, okay.
Principles.
Whether it was all in written form or in discussion form where we took notes, I think we all verify that we did have the information in front of us when we discussed that last week at the committee of the whole. So we're just bringing that forward with really no changes from last week recommended.
Yes.
This is still pertaining to the same discussion, and we held the vote so we could do it in an even more public meeting than the public meeting we had last week. So I'll ask if there are any questions specifically about those proposed fee increases. We're reluctant to increase any of these fees, but we all know the gas prices continue to go up. The cost of operating these buses for activities continues to go up. And I would suspect that this is still less expensive than hiring a charter bus or going through other means of transportation.
Yes, sir.
And it's much safer than individual cars.
Yes.
And so, any other comments or questions? Or if not, I'll entertain a motion that we either approve or reject this proposal.
With heartburn, I make the motion.
Which way? To accept?
To accept.
Okay. It's hard.
Anybody out there have any roll aids?
Okay.
I'll second, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve this recommended increase in mileage fee for the activity buses and the yellow buses used for student school activities. So any further questions or comments? We have a motion and a second to approve the recommendation. So all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Thanks, Dr. Taylor. Now, we'll go on next with the renewal of the GPS contract regarding the buses transporting students back and forth from school.
Yes, Dr. Cash, members of the board. Last Monday night, Dr. Hargrave shared with you some information on the renewal for the GPS contract that we currently have on all of our yellow school buses. The increase in the contract would be $12,000, and money for this renewal would come from the activity bus account. Since we've had this in place, it's been very, very helpful. We've been able to reduce our mileage costs on our buses by routing. We've been able to identify where buses are located when we've had medical issues or missing students with buses. So it has been a very beneficial program and service to have. The new service would provide keypads on every buses instead of the key fobs that we currently use. Oftentimes those key fobs are easily lost, and anytime they're lost, there's a replacement cost and a reprogramming cost that would be avoided with the new keypads. So I know there was extensive conversation and additional information shared regarding that last Monday night at the Committee of the Whole meeting.
I told Dr. Hargrave last week that he's probably surprised that I wanted to spend extra money on something. I am rather tight-fisted, which is no surprise. But this isn't, it really is a good idea. It's worth the money that's spent on it. It's a safety thing. Most modern fleet operations in the world now have some type of GPS tracking on them. And I sat here 3.5 years ago, said the same thing. It's not Big Brother watching out on our bus drivers. It's a safety thing, and it's been a cost saving. So I'll support it, and I'll make the motion that we accept the contract renewal.
We have a motion, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Not all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Next, ask Dr. Miller to come forward and discuss the capital budget request for 2014-15.
Thank you, Dr. Cash, Superintendent Johnson, members of the board. As we discussed at our CAL meeting, the good news is we have a little bit more capital money this year than we had last year. You were given a document which is a document that is a work document that we use for our data collection. We began this process back in December. This is the document that I'm asking for approval. This is our final recommendations based on our data collection, review, and basically narrowing down and fitting the projects into the budget. We had a request from our schools of $19 million in request, and as you can see, we have about $3 million in funds. So our recommendation is to accept this budget for next year, fiscal year 14-15, and be glad to answer any questions. We also have a few projects I'd like to mention that we've already discussed that will be lottery-based projects. That is the expansion at CATS that we will be getting bids in on tomorrow, and we've discussed previously about the fronting the funding for that so we can get started before school's out, and then it will be reimbursed from lottery. That project, we may need the board's approval tomorrow, if possible, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But this is our capital budget from the county, and I'm asking for approval for the 2014-15. I put 13 and 14 up so you could get a comparison, and be glad to answer questions.
Questions for Dr. Miller regarding capital budget?
I was just going to say that regardless of the bump in the increase in capital funding, we are still proverbially kicking the can down the road.
Very much so,
Yep.
Ms. Bonham.
But only by just a little bit. 16 million, something like that.
Yeah, and that doesn't include requests for construction, which is Facilities Task Force that will be meeting. We'll have a Facilities Task Force meeting next week to tighten up that Facilities Task Force recommendation.
Dr. Miller, having a funding formula, how much easier does that make it for you to plan?
Much easier. I was projecting about $3 million. We came out with $3,010,000, so it was just off about $10,000 to the good. So it makes it much, much better in projecting funds if you have a formula. And our capital budget is based on a formula.
Any other comments or questions? If not, we need to vote our approval to submit this capital budget request.
Make the motion, we accept the capital budget request.
A second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Not all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you very much.
Okay, next we have item H, the Reed 180 purchase approval. Ms. White.
Good evening. Tonight I have for your approval the purchase of the Reed 180 program. It is through the vendor is Scholastic. The funding source is the I-3 grant. They will use a portion of their donated funds and their federal ARA funds. The contract amount is $61,549.15. You can read on the memo what the program is used for, but it's basically a reading intervention program, and there's also some training that will be included in the contract price. Since this is federal ARA money, and Scholastic is the sole source for this program, we are required to get, from Scholastic their assertion that they are the sole source for this product. But since it's, like I said, federal ARA money, we have to go one step further, and we have to post on the state's IPS website for 10 business days the fact that we are intending to make a sole source purchase, and this gives anyone who's registered to receive these postings the opportunity to speak up. I'd say, raise my hand and say, you need to consider us also, that we provide a similar product. That 10-day window has not closed yet, so we're asking simply for approval, conditional upon the fact that no one contest the sole source posting. We've never had anyone contest a sole source posting. Doesn't mean it wouldn't happen, but we would not go forward with the contract until either that claim had been disputed and resolved, or if it was valid, we would then consider their proposal also. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I will say that we are bringing this to you before the window closes, simply to speed up the training process for the teachers, so that once the window closes, we don't have to wait until the June board meeting to bring it back.
When is that 10-day actually?
It's posted one day last week. I'm not exactly sure what day, so it'll be next week.
This is a one-year contract.
I am honestly not sure. I am bringing this forth on behalf of Ms. Lewis. I do not know. Do you know, Melanie? 3 years, Dr. Taylor says.
Any other questions, comments?
The 61,549 is the total for the 3 years.
Correct.
And I need to verify that, because there's some things we do 1 year and some things we do 3 years.
Okay.
So it is a program that we've used before. We've typically paid for it out of a different funding source. We've paid for it out of the FLC grant in the past, which did not have some of the same purchasing requirements. So
I'll be happy to clarify that for the
But it
board
doesn't
members.
come out of our operating budget, and it doesn't come out of our fund balance. It is out of the federal grant.
Correct. The federal grant and then the donated funds they had to secure to get the federal grant. Yes, sir.
Other questions or comments?
This would be the total cost, whether it's for 1 year or 3 years, but this would be the total cost.
Any motion to approve this request for the Read 180?
I'll make the motion to approve that.
Have a motion, is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Have a motion and a second. Any further questions? Not all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. I ask Dr. Taylor to come back for the policy number 4150, school assignment. This is a second reading and requires a vote.
yes, Dr. Cash, members of the board, Mr. Johnson, last month, Dr. Hargrave presented some amendments to policy 4150 on school assignment. The policy currently states that if you transfer within the district from a school to another school, you're not eligible to play sports for 365 days unless both principals meet and agree to sign off for the student to play. With the board's permission, the principals have requested to be removed from that process. It kind of puts them in a very awkward position. The recommendation is being brought forth to create a district athletic commission as a part of the local policy to determine that eligibility. The commission would determine all of the information, gather all the information and determine if the student was eligible to participate in athletics upon approval of their transfer. So request the amendment to that policy. This is a second reading. It has set for 30 days, and to my knowledge, there has been no additional feedback.
What is the criteria to participate on this panel or commission? I mean, shouldn't that be into the verbiage as well? How many community people, how many school people?
I think
of what nature?
the intent was for the district athletic director and the deputy superintendent to, and Mr. Armstrong, you may want to add to that, but my understanding is it would be the district athletic director and the deputy superintendent that would gather that information.
And we'd have a third neutral person.
Yeah, there were three.
Someone with no, they would be completely neutral. Not belong or have anything to do with any of the high schools.
I think the point, when we discussed this several times earlier and most recently last week, most of these transfer requests from one high school to another involves athletics of some kind, either undermining some of the other reasons or is a blatant reason. But it tends to be involved in most all of these transfer requests. Sometimes the principals interpret some of these reasons a little bit differently, and it creates conflict not only with the student and family involved, but sometimes with coaches, sometimes with the parents, sometimes between the principals. So I think this proposal is the best thing I've seen yet that takes that responsibility away from the individual principal, so it lets them continue to be the advocate for their own individual students, and it relieves them from being a competitive or adversarial position potentially. But I think even the more valuable thing, it creates an equitable committee of experienced people that know all the issues involved with sports law, the team's law, with high school sports activities, and with the school administration, because all the deputy superintendent and the athletic director especially have close knowledge of all these things, and it creates a more equitable environment in terms of these transfers across all the schools. So that, and I think that's what we've been trying ultimately to do in a lot of our other decision-making, is create equity, so that the same criteria are used in one situation as another, and this would be a way to help enhance that.
This didn't have any verbiage about being retroactive. In other words, it would be, if we pass the policy, it would begin with the passage of the policy tonight.
Correct.
With the next
14,
school.
15 school year.
Board, I think it's also important to point out that if you do pass this policy or amend the policy and you establish this athletic commission, this does remove the principals from the process and creates this commission, which hopefully will be viewed as being very neutral and not having any firsthand knowledge about students and whatnot. But it does not interfere with a parent's right to appeal the decision of the commission right back to the Board of Education. So that appeal process is still protected.
That's a good point. Thank you.
Any other points that need to be made or questions answered? If not, I'll entertain a motion to either accept or reject this proposal on school assignment policy change.
I'll make the motion to accept it.
Okay. Have a motion to accept the policy change 4150. Is there a second?
Second.
Have a motion to second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Okay, Ms. White is back for the last two voting items. Policy 5000, schools in the community. First.
Okay, thank you. This is the second reading, like you said. What this policy change does is change our policy to incorporate language that was passed by the General Assembly that requires us to post certain information about our state budget, how we spend that budget. We've had no comments from the public on this proposed change. The only comment that we have is from the board, the request that we also include our local budget, post similar information about our local budget. So we have incorporated that request into the policy. Can I control this?
Comments or questions about policy 5000, which involves information on how state and local money is spent, shared on our website to the public.
I'd just like to thank my fellow board members for going along with agreeing to put the information about the local funding on there also. I appreciate it.
And you make a motion, I'll second.
There's a motion to,
I move we accept policy 5000, schools in the community.
I'll second his motion, Mr. Chairman.
okay, have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Okay, next we have policy 9120, bidding for construction work. And again, this is a second reading and requires a vote.
Okay. Kelly and I are going to fight over the mouse. All right. Okay, this is second reading of policy 9120. Like you said, it does change the policy for some statutorial changes and updates the policy to be in alignment with state statute. It adds a provision for, I'm sorry, I'm trying to read this as we go along. Okay, yeah, it makes sure that we have in our policy the language regarding verification of employment status by any contractors or subcontractors of the general contractor, that they are following state statute regarding verification of employment status. It also adds the requirement that we give preference to North Carolina firms when possible over non-resident firms. It updates the bidding methods that we can utilize. It increases the formal and informal bidding thresholds to be in alignment with state statute, and it also provides a provision for a dispute resolution process. This is the second reading. We have received no comments from the public on any of these proposed changes.
Any questions or comments for Ms. White regarding the changes in Policy Code 9120 that are proposed? If not, I'll entertain a motion to accept the revision of Policy Code 9120 as presented.
So moved.
A motion, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Okay, now we have several policies that are first reading. We discussed these in more detail last week. I will allow Ms. White with the first one. You all, between you and Dr. Taylor and Dr. Lassane, can present these however you want to. If you want to do some in bulk or take them, just so we get them all covered.
I'll let you, I have one, so I'll just do that real quick, and then they can decide how they want to handle the rest of them. This policy recommendation is for change, is being brought forth because of a recommendation from the North Carolina School Boards Association. It adds a requirement that the school board members' requests for reimbursement expenses be accompanied by actual receipts. We already do that, so that's no problem. It clarifies that the superintendent will approve requests for reimbursement of expenses that are reasonable and appropriately documented. The actual school board's recommendation was that the board chair approve those requests. However, the board felt that the superintendent approval was adequate, and that's the practice that we currently follow. And then it makes some minor editorial changes. And again, this is first reading, doesn't require a vote, and we did discuss it last week, and I have not gotten any feedback yet.
Questions or comments at this point for Ms. White on board member compensation and expense? Okay, thank you. We'll move on to Dr. Taylor and Dr. Hargrave's part. Dr. Taylor, you, again, however you want to do these.
Okay, I'll go through these in bulk, and then if you have any questions, I'll do the ones that Dr. Hargrave was presenting first, and we did discuss these last Monday night. Policy 2121 addresses board member conflict of interest, clarifies circumstances under which a board member is prohibited from attempting to influence or making the administration of a contract, and clarifies the provision regarding contracts with a board member's spouse. Policy 2321 addresses closed session, and it adds the adoption of school safety requirements of school improvement plans to the list of permissible purposes for a closed session in accordance with state law. Policy 4120, domicile or residence requirements, modifies provisions regarding the assignment of students who are homeless to clarify some of that information so that it's in alignment with Policy 4125. Policy 4333 adds gunpowder, ammunition, and bullets to the list of examples of weapons, and extends the prohibition against making terrorist threats to include threats made at school events off school property as well. Policy 4351, which addresses short-term suspension, changes some minor wording from principal to designee throughout the policy. And Policy 6225 addresses free and reduced lunch services. It adds provisions requiring principals to implement school rules and procedures that do not impede eligible students from participating in the breakfast and lunch programs, and changes some additional legal updates. So those policies were all presented last week for a first reading, and will sit for 30 days for public comment or before requiring a vote. Any questions on any of those policies?
Questions or comments for Dr. Taylor about the ones Dr. Hargrave presented last week?
I had 3 policies that I presented to you last week, the first of which was policy 3410, which addresses the testing and assessment program. And there was some minor wording in there that changes some information language from local EOC tests to NC final exams, addresses high school testing, and it aligns it to policy 3460. We've already passed policy earlier this year, which changes the weight of high school final exams from 25% to 20%. It exempts the statement that superintendents can exempt high school seniors from common exams because that is no longer an option. Policy 3420 addresses student promotion and accountability, and I did include with your packet this evening the state adopted or state policy for that policy, and recommend that we adopt the state policy based on our conversation. If you recall, our previous policy still included some information that pertained to student accountability and gateways that were no longer in place at the state level. At that time, the board had opted to continue and leave those pieces in place, but our teachers have many more data points that they're looking at the end of the year for each one of our students. So they have a lot more information other than that one end of grade test to determine promotion and retention. So we'd recommend that we adopt the state policy, and I've included that for you. And then policy 3460 for graduation requirements updates the section on NC final exams and career and technical education post-assessments, aligns the percent of a student's final grade, and revises some diploma endorsements. So be glad to answer any questions that you may have on those policies as well. Once again, those are sitting for a first reading and will require a vote at the June board meeting.
Comments or questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Lassane?
Dr. Cash, Mr. Johnson, members of the board, I have the last set of policies for first reading. And from our discussion last week, you will notice in your memo, I did not completely remove it, but I just had the strike-through placed on policy 7100, which has been tabled based on board discussion. We will bring that back only as necessary to be aligned to additional policy that may be forthcoming. Policy 7410 is a new policy that is aligned to new process for teacher contracts. As we discussed last week, this policy includes nothing about 25%. It is just the alignment to develop a policy regarding creating contracts and administering contracts for teachers. And so this policy would be added to our table. Policy 7540 is regarding voluntary shared leave, and that just changes references and updates legal references. Policy 7810 is regarding plans for growth and improvement of licensed employees. Again, some edits and updates to references regarding this policy. 7820, personnel files. This one was important to not only update the references, but also to change appropriate language, such as probationary teacher to a non-career status teacher. Policy 7900, resignations, changes references as well as updates terminology. Policy 7920, professional personnel reduction in force, adds new statutory references and updates other references. Policy 7930, professional employees demotion and dismissal. In addition to changing the referencing and updating cross-references and footnotes and all of those editorial things, it also updates the list of grounds for dismissal, again, to align to statutory language. Classified personnel, suspension and dismissal, just an update to the footnoting. And then policy 7950, which is most of the places where there is a change for statutory reasons, it is due to no longer having tenure. So this policy, even the title changes to non-career status teacher non-renewal, as well as removing any references to probationary teachers, and reflects the new laws regarding the non-renewal process as they come into effect. And it provides a method for how to administer a discretionary hearing, which there will be some decisions that the board will ultimately have to make regarding that process. Are there any questions on these policies? Okay. Again, these are for first reading, and we will be bringing them back next month. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, that concludes our agenda of the non-consent portion of our meeting. We now come to time for public comment, and I had one speaker sign up outside earlier, Scott Klontz, to speak to the board about integrity. I see that Mr. Klontz left. I'll ask, are there any other members of the public that would like to speak to the board? If not, we'll move on to superintendent comments. Mr. Johnson.
Thanks, Dr. Cash, members of the board. Got a little video I'd like to share with you tonight, and as they prepare that for us, this is a graduation time, and I've been fortunate in that I got to attend a college graduation last Sunday, and heard on the news this morning as I was getting ready to work that 11% of the students that are graduating from college this year with a degree, a bachelor's degree in a liberal arts field, 11% of those kids are finding employment in their degree area, and that's down from 14% last year. Also heard today, Congresswoman Fox was visiting VPAC, and she told the students there today that conservatively there are 400,000 vocational technical jobs that are going unfilled in our country right now. So, wow, how in the world can we as a school system bring about a paradigm shift to help our kids make that connection that there are great jobs out there and that some of these jobs don't require a liberal arts education. Some of our neighboring school systems have come up with some strategies, and I'd like to share this video from one of our sister school systems, and then we will continue this discussion. Are we ready? Okay.
You make stuff? A lot of people do it. Well, you can like trade and transport and
build stuff.
Yeah. China.
Made it. That was made.
It means that we're actually doing something. We're not just sitting around all day.
It's kind of surprising sometimes, like, because mostly you see things made in foreign countries.
It gotta be a chick magnet job.
I'd be a Navy SEAL.
Marine.
Yeah, maybe.
I'd be a game warden.
I don't specifically know what I want to do, but I have like little ideas.
I'm a mechanical maintenance engineer.
I'm a marketing communications specialist.
I'm a line leader setter.
I now am the research and environmental technician.
I am a senior design engineer.
I'm a welder and a fabricator.
I actually run the Rotolab.
I do programming, setting up of CNC machines.
For Warner Thermal, we make cooling fans for vehicles, semi-trucks, Ford, Chevy.
I'm the marketing manager for Diamond Brands.
No. That'd be boring, just sitting there doing the same thing every day.
It's hard to say what I like the most. I think one of the things I like the most is I get to do a lot of different things every day.
It's different every day.
I can spend some time at the desk and do some design and drawing, but my favorite part is when I can actually get out on the equipment, work with the guys, and get my hands on it.
Living in this area, you see people out on the trail that are riding parts that you designed.
That may be the thing I like the most about what I do, is that I do different things.
What I like most about my job is just being able to work in so many different areas of the company.
This keeps me busy.
It's just constant movement, and that's what I enjoy.
You don't have to be like, you can talk and hang out with your friends.
Working with friends and people you know, and working with your hands and not sitting down at a desk all day.
I will go and say it if I'm not social.
I get to learn a lot some days, other days I get to be really creative.
I like that everybody here is really fun.
And everybody's really friendly, so it's just a nice, comfortable place to work.
I really like the guys I work with. Real good work environment.
They make, we get to put cool handprints on our lab coats.
Express my creativity through mechanical means rather than like art and whatnot.
I really like working with my hands, and this is what this is all about.
So it's cool. I get to see it from an idea to a completed part in my hand. But we have people in here that are working for us that have all different types of degrees and backgrounds in education, but they show a definite interest and a inquisitiveness that I think really sets them apart.
Here in the manufacturing industry, there are all different types of jobs, everything from communications to marketing to maintenance to engineering, like what I do.
I'd rather go somewhere else. Sometimes you can be like, oh, I just want to get out of this place. Yeah.
Too boring.
It's boring.
I grew up in Brevard, North Carolina.
I grew up in Hendersonville, North Carolina.
Didn't want to come back. I never thought I'd be back here.
I've always visited the mountains as a kid. I went to summer camp up in Highlands, North Carolina for a long time. The friendliness of the people.
Love the rivers, love hiking, love running.
There are just a lot of pluses as far as living right here.
I moved back to this area to go to grad school and just loved the area so much that I ended up staying.
I couldn't wait to get out. I was itching to get out. But then I came back, and I love it, and I'm so glad I did.
I want to thank the folks up in Henderson County for sharing that with us. And I bet if we sat down with our middle school students and had that same conversation, it'd probably look a lot like that. Our Career and Technical Education Division of the school system does a remarkable job. But one thing that I plan to call on and ask our CTE division to do next year is help us bridge that gap with our students and help them understand that there are lots and lots of great jobs out there, and that you don't necessarily have to have a Bachelor of Arts degree or a Bachelor of Science degree. There will always be room for liberal arts education, and liberal arts education will always be necessary in our nation. But there are lots and lots of good opportunities out there for kids. And so we want to help our parents and our students begin to make that paradigm shift. Just as you saw these students here, re-educating them and getting them to think just a little bit differently. So that's one of the initiatives that we'll tackle next school year. The next item is some information that we received late Friday afternoon. We got this so late that your board packets had already been sent out to you. But you have a paper copy there in front of you, and of course the projection is showing the copies, the electronic copies there too. Back in the, a couple months ago, we sent our budget request to the county commissioners. That budget request this year was for a modest increase in our capital expenses of $1.7 million. Now that was, or excuse me, current expense of $1.7 million. Now that was down considerably. Last year we asked for $6 million in current expense, and so we did at the request of the county manager, reduce that request significantly this year. We did get the county manager's response, and if we could pull that one up, please. What the county has proposed to us last week was funding of 31.9 million. We are currently at 31.2, so that is an increase of $763,000. And that's certainly good news. The challenging part is that we requested 1.7, so it still leaves a gap of nearly $1 million. So between now and May 22nd, when we have our next presentation to the county commissioners, we will need to get our minds wrapped around that and decide what our response will be. A couple of options that we have is we can reduce the budget again by another $1 million. That will probably have to be 100% personnel. We can also consider using our fund balance for a third consecutive year. And another option that we have is to ask the county commissioners if they would allow us to divert capital dollars to current expense for 1 year. So again, I invite you to be part of this discussion May the 22nd at 6 p.m. in the conference room downstairs, and we will continue to try to balance our budget for the new school year. Thank you, Dr. Cash.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. That concludes our agenda for the public meeting tonight. We do need to go into closed session to discuss some personnel and property issues. But if you all will bear with me a minute, I need to make a few comments, I believe, in open session before we go to closed session, as advised previously by our school board attorney, both at our local level and at the state level. It's been brought to my attention that once again, the confidentiality of our closed board session has been breached based on the meeting we had last week. And I've been asked by several other fellow board members to make some comments, and as our legal advisors advised us that these comments need to be made in open session rather than discussed in closed session. So it's very difficult for me to do this, and I'll try to do this constructively and help the public, help us make sense of this situation. When we discuss issues in closed session, they're for a reason. It's either to protect the integrity of the school system itself, especially if it's property issues that may be better kept private until decisions are made, where there may be competitive forces out there that would be harmful to the school system to be discussed too early in the process, but especially when it comes to personnel decisions where members of our hired staff in whatever position they're in are mentioned and discussions held at the board level regarding their continued